1750. Well, it's been 6 months, more or less, since I was last down here in the 5th, although it doesn't feel that long to me. I have to wonder, is this how bears feel? Emerging after sleeping for an entire winter, blinking, wondering what the heck has been going on while they caught some Z's. Obviously I'm not blinking, due to the lack of lids, but I am feeling a little disoriented. After moving down the tunnel and back into the fortress, it's clear that things have changed down here just a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. Putting aside the general more I see around me, more ants, more non-ants, more logistics, I think Solent has upgraded the previous system to what looks like a full-on railway. The changes to the stratum itself are the most surprising. Without the poisonous influence of thioresin corrupting everything, I can only assume that the natural, original flavor of the 5th is starting to come back, and it looks organic. The tunnel walls, once covered in mucus, slime, fungus and various other unspeakable substances are now looking a little alive. Standing in the middle of the vast chamber beneath the entrance, it almost feels as if I'm inside a fleshy organism of some kind. Which, I suppose, makes sense when I think about it. If the 5th before was a living thing, made sick and infected with a hideous disease, then getting rid of the infection will return it to what it was before, a healthy creature of flesh and blood. Wait a second, the 5th isn't a monster, is it? That would be weird. Eldest, it's nice to see you have returned to where the family needs you. Solent's rather snippy greeting brings me out of my thoughts and back to the present moment. She's clearly still annoyed I put off returning to the 5th in order to settle things up above. Well, she can get over it, I was never going to let that situation stand. I'm here now, I tell her, looking down at the little general. Are things really going so poorly? You sound stressed. Being in command of the invasion of an entire stratum is a rather stress-laden endeavor, she tells me, a little dryly. Things are not going poorly, they are simply not progressing as well as I would like. I mean, that sounds like the situation is going poorly to me. Stolen novel, please report. All right then, I tell her, let's get down to the headquarters and you can lay out the situation for me. Is that really necessary? She asks, waving her antennae impatiently. I can simply direct you to the location of our greatest need. Just how impatient are you, Solent? Sheesh, I just got here and you want to fling me off into the tunnels without even telling me how things are going. I'll fight non-stop and smash the slugs back into the depths from whence they came, but it would be nice if I could have a little context for the smashing. I get the feeling Solent is getting a little too comfortable treating everything and everyone around her as an extension of herself. Tools to be used in the pursuit of victory rather than individuals that need to be respected. She sure as heck isn't going to treat me like that. Perhaps this will be a healthy reminder for her. One of my antennae twitches with the urge to thwack, but I hold back, knowing the risk of inflicting serious injury with my irregular size. This is proving to be an ongoing issue. I turn to one of the ants standing next to Solent, Leonidant, I think. One of her siblings, at any rate. Hey, can you thwack Solent for me? The ant in question freezes on the spot. Excuse me, just wander over and give her a good, solid thwack on the head with one of your antennae, I tell her. I can't do it, I'd crush her into little bits. But, why would you want to do that? Because she's being rude and treating her family members like tools. Clearly some sense needs to be knocked into that head of hers and I'm asking you to be the one to do it. Senior, Solent begins, but I cut her off. Not now, Solent, I'm sorting something out. Come on now, stop wasting time and get it done. I don't want to. It's not like I want to thwack her, I lie. But sometimes it has to be done. This is one of those times. No need to be shy, just wander over there and put a bit of oomph behind it. I can tell that Leonidant is not enthusiastic about this, but with me looming over her, she is hardly in a position to resist. Reluctance dripping off her visibly, the scout drags herself over to the general, raises an antenna, and gives her a limp pat on the head. That was a little weak, I say, trying not to be too harsh. Please don't make me do it again, Leonidant begs and I sigh. Fine, well, I hope you learned your lesson, Solent. Thoroughly, she says, eyeing her sister a little too intently. Hey, it's not her fault you stopped treating your family right. Come on now, let's go to the HQ. The sooner you can fill me in, the sooner you can kick me out into the tunnels. Very well, she says, turning around and leading the way deeper into the fortress. I will fit into the HQ, right? I ask as I fall in behind her. No, dang it, 1751. As it turns out, Solent wasn't lying when she said I wasn't going to fit inside the chamber she uses to coordinate the campaign. The best they can do is enlarge one of the entrances so I can plop down outside and peer in. At least it's enough to allow me to see the ever-changing model of the fifth that the generals have been using. I've seen it before, and I'd assumed that after 6 months they would have had to start making a new one, using a new scale, but nope. The model is enormous, basically the size of a multi-story building, contained in an ever-expanding oval carve-out in the center of the room. Every minute detail of the stratum has been replicated, down to the tiniest little tunnels, represented by filaments as thin as an ant hair. The first thing I see when I start taking it in is the chambers that are obviously representing hearts. It appears as though the colony has conquered over a dozen of the things, vastly expanding the amount of cleansed territory and driving back the Krath. For each of the hearts, a matching fortress has been constructed, not necessarily the size of the original, but each there to provide the same function, housing the tanks of purified mana necessary to flood the system and overwhelm the corruption of Theorazin. I can scarcely imagine the sheer quantity of effort the colony has poured into achieving this. Getting the first heart cleansed was a monumental effort and it nearly got me killed. They made this much progress even without me, Tiny, Chrysalis and Nvidia. It's boggling. As you can see, we have been busy in your absence, Solent says, moving over to the model and then climbing onto it. Makes sense, I suppose. It's not like she can just point at the parts she wants to indicate, it's way too large. With her small frame, it's trivial for Solent to pick her way over the surface, heading towards the places she wants to emphasize. We have been continuing to expand our field of influence by strategically targeting hearts. Using our connected network of fortresses, we can utilize the channels to transfer and stockpile liquid mana in the places where we want it. By flooding sections of the dungeon, we've been able to clear out Krath resistance and make it difficult for them to form a solid defensive line. Ah, that makes sense. With the power of the cleansed mana and the ability to deliver it right to the front in tremendous volume, they can literally drive out the Krath and then move in to secure the territory once they're gone. Using this method, they could avoid any major confrontations against the Krath completely. No wonder they've been so successful. I'm guessing the Krath have found ways to mitigate the effectiveness of the strategy. Indeed, Solent crawls out to the edges of the model, pointing at several key points. Our expansion, in terms of width, hasn't been opposed as much as when we have tried to go deeper. Most of the Krath opposition is positioned here, here and here. In response to our flooding strategy, they have begun to reshape the tunnels, creating huge reservoirs of concentrated mucus to dump our mana into, diverting the flow away from their defensive emplacements. Fighting over the vent systems has also intensified dramatically. They've realized we can use them to pour mana directly into the hearts and have been doing everything they can to stop them falling into our mandibles, even destroying them. This tale has been unlawfully lifted without the author's consent. Report any appearances on Amazon. As a result, the pace of our advance has slowed dramatically over the last 2 months, allowing the Krath to slowly entangle us in a battle of attrition. This is precisely the sort of conflict we must avoid. The burden it places on the troops, the rate of attrition, cannot be borne. Also, it gives the slug tribes more time to concoct countermeasures and embed their defenses. If we don't break through soon, making significant progress will only come at an appalling cost. I see. Solent wants me back in the fight as a line breaker. A shock assault piece to smash through the slugs, position and allow the cleansed mana to flow deeper into the dungeon before they have a chance to reshape the terrain. So long as we can keep the tribes backpedaling, they won't have the capacity to defend themselves from the flood strategy. It also means we would have more chances to seize vents before they can tamper with them. If we have control of vents, then we can attack the hearts directly. Alright, where am I headed? I ask. First, I would like you to hit these Krath outposts. Here, here, here and here. Surprisingly, Solent doesn't go straight to the deepest parts of the model, but 4 points along the outer edge of its middle. These are the main concentrations of Krath forces preventing our expansion along the width of our territory. If they fall, then we will be able to capture at least 2 more hearts and open new avenues into the depths, most importantly this arterial tunnel that we believe runs almost 800 kilometers down. That's a mighty nice passage to control. I can see why Solent wants it. After that, I would want you to deploy into the depths. It's important that we move quickly. Giving the slugs time to adapt has proven to be the death knell of many strategies. They are devious and clever creatures. If they know you are coming, they will find a way to capture you as they did before. Well, I think they will find that a little more difficult now than they did before, I say, standing up again and stretching my legs. Say, I wonder aloud. Have we had any miners, or maybe Smith ant, come down here and look around? Looking for new materials that might aid the war effort. Solent says, nodding. Yes, we have. With the return of the original mana and monsters, there have been some deposits of materials found to be growing here and there. We have been assessing them, but the process is slow going. They are difficult to work with, so I am told. Get Merchant down here to look at them, I instruct Solent. Merchant, I don't think there is any trade to be had down here, Solent says doubtfully. Just trust me, she'll know what to do. Let her look at everything you've found so far. Surely something will be useful. Very well. Good. Well, I'm off. One more place to see and then I'll head out. What? Where are you going now? Solent asks, masking her frustration. I was saved by the little snails during my evolution. If not for them, I'd probably be dead. At the very least, I'd be less awesome. I owe them a thanks. 1752. As it turns out, the nursery isn't quite where I remember it being. The fortress is still absurdly vast, and rooms are being repurposed all the time. One of the resident brood tenders, a lovely sister of mine by the name of Tendant, leads me to where I want to go and explains the reasons behind the shift. As our territory has expanded, we've gained control of more craft villages. Hundreds, at this point. They aren't always able to evacuate properly, the poor things. The brood tender clacks her mandibles despondently, and I can't help but wonder if the innate compassion of her caste has gone a little too far. All brood tenders should be loving, caring teachers for the young, of course, but feeling sorry for the craft. I mean, they're the craft. A nastier, more conniving and generally yucky species has yet to be found on Pangara. Literally, leaving behind their eggs must be such a painful decision, the tender goes on, unaware of my inner conflict. And not all of the eggs survive the transition, which is just awful. Even so, we have managed to recover many more viable eggs and hatch our darling little snails. As a result, we needed to greatly expand the snail care facility. Well, how many snails do we have now? I ask. From what I remember, there weren't that many of them before. A few dozen, maybe 100. Over 2,000, Tendant tells me brightly. We've had to divide them into smaller groups. They really don't like being overcrowded. The last hatching was just a few days ago. They're so small just after they hatch. So precious. 2,000. That's way more than expected. At this rate, we may actually have a viable population of these cleansed craft. Will the Chal Empire return to its former glory? Under the protective umbrella of their ant allies, of course. Well, I just came to see the first group. Oh, I'm sure the Resant won't have a problem with that, Tendant informs me as we arrive out the front of two large doors carved with an intricate depiction of ants and snails working together in harmony. As it turns out, the Resant is slightly worried about letting me see the Chal. Aren't you being a little too protective? I say, irritated. After arguing with her for 10 minutes, I'm starting to get a bit offended. Just what is it you think I'm going to do to them? You are well known for tickling the grubs and rolling them around, eldest, she informs me, a little snippily. Not anymore, I protest. I'm much too large and my antennae are way too heavy. And I resent the implication I would happily crush the snails to death. Do you think I have that little self-control? Still visibly reluctant, the Resant finally lets me inside the facility. I'm sure it's because of my persuasive arguments and not because I threatened to just walk through the wall. After all, I'm famed for my reasonableness. Unfortunately, I'm too large to actually go inside the rooms dedicated to the care of the Chal, so the Resant has kindly offered to bring them out to see me. Reading on Amazon or a pirate site. This novel is from Novel Bin. Support the author by reading it there. I have to say, the snail care facility really does have a tranquil and nurturing feeling about it. The air is still and peaceful. Every ant in the place moves with a grace and quiet joy that seems to suffuse the very stones. Inside the courtyard in which I'm waiting, there are several different gardens, each based on a different theme, the arrangements evoking different thoughts and feelings from the viewer. This feeling is almost spiritual. And the sounds, I can't quite describe it. I can't really hear anything fully, but through the general quiet I can detect the odd note that hangs in the air, quivering with an energy and life all of its own. I have to wait a while. At first I thought the Resant just lied to me, but then I have to concede they are snails, and not very large ones at that. I can't expect them to move quickly. They don't call it snail's pace for nothing. When the Resant returns, she is visibly fretting, hovering over a group of snails accompanied by an almost equal number of brood tenders. This time I am offended. Is that really necessary? Sheesh. For their part, the snails appear completely relaxed. Their eyes, atop their little stalks, are filled with peace and almost half shut, while their long, thin mustaches flow down their faces to trail on either side of their bodies. They really are a sight to see, these snails. Perhaps they have changed as they've gotten older, but their skin is a soft golden color that seems to be glowing from within, while their shells are like precious jewels, gleaming and sparkling upon their backs. In silence, they approach before stopping just a few meters away from one of my legs. Slowly, they form themselves into a neat formation, evenly spaced, and then look up at me, unblinking. How are we supposed to talk to them? Do they understand pheromones? Or should I whip up a mind bridge? Absolutely not. The Resant snaps. Their minds are too fragile to be subject to such magic. They are still infants. Well, sure, they're not a year old yet, but they look pretty darn wise if you ask me. Maybe it's just the mustache, but these little guys give off an almost ancient wise guru sort of vibe. Still, it wouldn't do to just ignore the advice of a brood tender, so I figure I may as well say my thanks using pheromones and hope somebody can translate it for me at some point. Before I can relay the message, the lead snail begins to hum. Just a single note, but that pure, impossibly clean note sings along my antennae and stuns me into silence. Following the first, another snail hums a note, then another, then another. One by one, each of the little child joins in until all of them are humming and the hairs on my antennae are dancing the Viennese waltz. The pure perfection of it is enough to bring an imaginary tear to my very corporeal eyes. Carried away by the sound, I don't even feel the passing of time. All of my brains, all my mind constructs are simply absorbed in experiencing the all-encompassing sound produced by the snails. And then, abruptly, it is over, all sound is cut off and I snap back to myself, looking down at the snails who appear somewhat wan and fatigued. Even their mustaches look a little less regal than before. Do they get tired easily? I ask. They've only been humming at me for a few minutes. No, they don't. The Resant snaps, furious as she urgently begins to round up the snails who reluctantly obey her directing antennae pokes back towards their rooms. What do you mean? They've only been out here for a few minutes. It's been 2 hours. What? 2 hours. Eldest. This is why I didn't want to bring them out here. Something always goes wrong when you're around. What did I do? That was all them. Heck, I don't even know what they did. They did something for you, she snaps back. I don't care what it is, just don't come here and tire them out all the time. They're still growing. Confused, I start to examine myself, but I can't find any changes on my carapace or legs. Perturbed, I look inside, and it takes a while, but I eventually do find that something has, unbelievably, changed. My pure core. It hasn't changed much, it's almost not noticeable, really, but I swear it's taken on a slightly, shellish appearance. What the heck? 1753. It's a little sad, but obviously Tiny and the gang can't come with me once I go back out into the tunnels. Tiny and Nvidia are both happy to be deployed to one of the deeper fortresses and help fend off the Krath who have been launching raids there, but Chrysalis is a little harder to convince. Master, no, she sobs. Really, Chrysalis, this is a bit much, even for you. You're going to get lost, or captured, or vanish into a mysterious void. Let me go too. That's probably not going to happen. I'll be careful. Get off my carapace, damn it. Never. I'm trying to scoop her off with my antennae, but she either clings on tighter or just flows around them, not letting me get a grip. As a result, the surrounding ants are treated to the sight of me rolling around trying to get my incooperative death shadow of doom off my back. Eventually, I have to give up and issue an order. I blame you entirely, I tell a still writhing Chrysalis as she blobs on the ground, trying to fling her tentacles onto me but unable to due to the order. If you just cooperated, we wouldn't be in this position. I can keep you safe. She protests. No you can't and you dang well know so, I snap back. You're being ridiculous. Solent has already told you what you can do to help, so go and get to it. It takes another 10 minutes to get Chrysalis moving, and only then can I finally head back out to the edges of the colony's new territory, which means moving through the tunnels that have returned to their original form. I'm quite excited to see what the fifth was originally like and it doesn't disappoint. The natural mana must be some variety of biomana or something, because it's clearly a fleshy, organic environment, and the monsters seem to fit that theme perfectly. Many of them remind me of cells, while others resemble tissues, formed of multiple cells in a sort of cooperative group. Nearly all of them are some variety of fleshy, gloopy, organic-looking entities, though. At least none of them are all that strong, having largely been spawned rather recently. With several guides, I run through the tunnels, smashing through the occasional monster who sees fit to challenge me, but for the most part they shy away when I draw near, making for a safe and swift run. Even so, it takes a long time to reach our destination. The colony has expanded its reach through thousands of kilometers of the fifth. Were it flattened out onto a map, it would be the size of a small country at this point. Running to the edge of it is quite the journey. Thankfully, colony engineers have been hard at work creating express tunnels so I'm not running up and around all sorts of twisty paths, which helps a lot. Unauthorized tail usage. If you spot this story on Amazon, report the violation. In the end, I reach the border in a day, completely free of fatigue thanks to the still enormous number of ants within range of the vestibule. Also, I seem to be getting some sort of energy out of the Bane statue in there. Which I won't be thinking about. I didn't miss this. Looking out through the edge of the cleansed zone and into the disgusting mess that is the infected fifth, my feelings of revulsion are hard to put down. Considering the battle I had to endure against the toxins of Theorizone, I'm not especially keen to go through it again, even. In a mild way, after traveling through the cleansed area for so long, I was starting to hope this mess didn't actually exist anymore and Solent was just playing a prank on me, but no, it's still here, in all its mucousy glory. In fact, this section of the dungeon is particularly dangerous, because not too far away there's a Krath outpost with several thousand of the slugs stationed in the area. All sorts of nasty traps and shenanigans have no doubt been prepared in order to stop the colony from expanding further, and it's my job to get rid of all of them. To mess with those dang slugs, there is very little I won't put up with. Bravely, I extend my leg out into the corruption, put it down into the sludge, then step through. The first and most relieving thing I notice is that my eyes don't melt anymore. Flesh is inferior, diamonds are forever. My precious gem eyes are holding up much better against the corroding effect of the mana here, which means I'm not in a constant state of near blindness. Victory. Not that it's pleasant to be out here, it still sucks. The hairs on my antennae and legs are almost immediately burned off and I'm assailed on all sides by the poison and toxin. It hurts like heck, but I can put up with it. My mind constructs spin up, getting ready to put in some overtime, making sure that the infecting energy doesn't get into my body and start spreading. That's the real danger. Getting eaten from the inside out by corruption is way less fun than it sounds. And it doesn't sound fun. After acclimating myself for a few minutes, I steady myself, then take a few steps forward. Time to get moving. Then I stop. Something strange is happening. Using my considerable powers of the mind, I narrow my focus and turn it inward, examining every little wisp of mana within my rather large frame. Increasing the surface area hasn't made it easier to keep the infection out, one way my larger body is at a distinct disadvantage out here. Even with all my effort, a few stray bits of corrupted mana are sneaking into my body, and that's pretty much inevitable. Before, I would have several mind constructs on the lookout for things like this. Once these little bits of mana manage to grow themselves, they'd eventually get spotted and then crushed. An endless cycle. However, something different is happening now. The little wisps aren't getting the chance to grow themselves, they're being sucked away, into the pure core, and then, annihilated. Straight up cooked. Curious, I let my control slip a little bit, allowing some more mana to get inside me, and I watch as it too is drained away, pulled into the core and completely destroyed. I figured it would do something like this, but holy moly. How effective is this thing? 1754. It became increasingly obvious to colony scholars and researchers that the fifth, that is to say, the natural state of the fifth before its corruption, was quite unlike anything that we had seen before. Hardly a novel observation, each layer of the dungeon differs remarkably from the others, yet what was discovered defied any guesses or predictions as to what was to be expected from a layer of the dungeon. It is no secret that mana can become organic tissue. That is how monsters are created, or spawned, after all. Yet it seemed as if the fifth stratum was originally filled with this form of organic, or bio-mana. A form of energy that, unlike life-aligned mana, didn't nourish or enhance living tissue, but became it. No stratum was more susceptible to the corruption of Theorizone. The ancient was able to infect and distort the very structure of it the same way they would any other living tissue. As it slowly began to return to its original form, the true wonders of what had Been lost to Pangara were gradually uncovered, one by one. Excerpt from Into the Unknown, by historian. Pure core, takes in corruption and gives it the smoke. That's the basic premise of the thing, but I had no idea how effective the thing was going to be. For that reason, I haven't mutated it at all, hoping to get a read on the baseline performance. If it was rubbish, it may not have been worth mutating at all. Trying to push it in another direction may have been the best call. However, that doesn't seem to be the case here. Gradually and with extremely rigid mental control, I loosen my grip on the mana invading my carapace, allowing it to flow just a smidge more freely. As the amount of tainted mana flowing into me increases in tiny increments, I monitor the pure core. If it heats up and stops working like the ever-flowing well does, then I really want to know well in advance. Things would go rather poorly for me if I was left with a huge chunk of corruption inside me mid-fight or something. However, the core seems to just keep on keeping on. It sucks in tainted energy and just seems to murderize the stuff. As far as the amount it can handle is concerned, not bad. After gradually increasing the rate of exposure, it doesn't take too long to find the limit of the pure core. To be honest, it's more than I expected, a rather healthy amount for a completely unmutated organ. This story has been taken without authorization. Report any sightings. It's enough to make a significant material difference to the allotment of my mental resources. With less of my mind constructs devoted to scouring my internals for trace elements of corruption, I can use them for regular spellcasting and mana manipulation. All in all, the pure core has freed up roughly 10% of my mind constructs, which is absolutely massive. Hunting down those stray traces of tainted mana is way more tiring and resource-intensive than I care to admit. Not having to worry about it as much as a weight off of my minds. Reveling in the relative ease I can deal with the corrupting mana of the fifth, I begin to leisurely wander about, clacking my mandibles with glee as I go where I will without fear. Oh, a puddle of evil-looking slime. Ha, I laugh in the face of the evil-looking slime. Look at me poke with one leg. Oh no, the corruption has seeped into my leg. And it's gone. Gway hey 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 hey. I wonder how well the core will do when I upgrade it to +15. Since I already have the biomass, I decide to go ahead and do it before I get too far from the safe zone. As always, there's a plethora of options to upgrade the thing, but I'm only really interested in improving its core function right now. Make it better at purifying mana. Which means I end up with the concentrated pure core +15. Confirm that. Fortunately there aren't any ants here on the very border to see my embarrassing flailing. The core itself is rather small and hardly as itchy as something like my carapace, muscles or eyes mutating, but it's right in the middle of my guts. It's awful. Once the mutation process is complete, I wander over to the pool of evil slime and stick my leg in again, carefully monitoring the trail of corruption as it enters my system. As before, the pure core soaks it in before taking it out back and making it disappear. Judging by the speed of destruction, it's probably improved by another 30% or so. Very nice. The slugs have absolutely no idea what's coming their way. Not having to worry nearly as much about the tainted mana of the fifth means I can fight them so much easier than I could before. This is going to be fantastic. My heart is so light I start springing about the place like an ant less than a tenth of my size. Hopping here and there without a care in the world. Toxic fungal bloom, who cares? Lurid mucus leaking from the ceiling and dripping onto me. Not a problem. River of sludge moving oh so slowly through the middle of the tunnel. Well, I might dip in a leg, test the temperature. Why not? Oh, it's highly acidic, that's why not. Ouch. Giving my leg a little shake, I decide to rein it in a little bit. Just because I'm safer than before doesn't mean I'm safe. I'd better make sure I show the proper respect to the fifth as I continue. Even so, it's hard to keep that little bit of a spring out of my step as I make my way deeper into the tunnel.